standard, you're going to learn how to solve quadratic equations by inspection, square roots, factoring, completing the square, and the quadratic formula. In this particular lesson, you're going to learn how to do it by factoring. Okay, so I want to review how to solve a linear equation. I'm not going to go over factoring like in the previous slide, but I am going to go over solve a linear equation. And this one right here, I had 3 to both sides. 4x equals 20. Divide by 4, x equals 5. And this one, I distribute the negative 2, and I get negative 6x plus 2 equals 20. Subtract 2 to both sides, and I get negative 6x equals 18. Divide by negative 6, x equals negative 3. Okay, that's a quick reminder of how to solve a linear equation. As you can tell, those were 2 3-step equations. Now, how can we solve this quadratic equation? We are going to do it by factoring. To solve a quadratic equation by factoring, your first step is to set the equation equivalent to 0. That is imperative. It has to be set to 0 no matter what. If it's not set to 0, you cannot solve the quadratic equation by factoring. Step 2, factor. Just like you did in the previous standard, you're going to factor. Set each factor to 0, so each set of parentheses to 0, then solve each parentheses. Okay? First one, x squared minus 6x plus 5 x squared minus 6x plus 5 equals 0. Okay, so our first step, make sure it's equal to 0. It is. Next step, factor. Now, finish factoring. And I get x minus 1 times x minus 5. Once you get here, you take the x minus 1, set it to 0, and the x minus 5 and set it to 0. Solve for x. So my answer is x equals 1 and x equals 5. Both of those are solutions to solving that quadratic. As you can tell, I factored it out just like normal. The only new part is you are solving for x. That's the only new concept you're learning. You are setting each parenthesis to 0 and solving for x. That is the only new thing in this standard. Now let's look at, I'm not going to do number 2, I'm going to skip over to number 3. X squared minus 9x plus 18 equals 2x. Now the first thing you should notice is it is not set to 0. To do that, I have to move the 2x over. Combine the like terms and I'll get x squared minus 11x plus 18 equals 0. I now factor x squared minus 9x minus 2x plus 18. As you can see, negative 9 times negative 2 gives me positive 18. And I get x minus 2 times x minus 9. All that does equal 0. Now we set to 0. X minus 2 equals 0, and I get x equals 2. And then I go x minus 9 equals 0, and x equals 9. So my answers for that quadratic would be positive 2 and positive 9. The next one I want to do is x squared equals 25. Now, if this was another standard, I'd teach you a different way to solve this one, but we're still going to do it with factoring. So I have to move that 25 over because I want to set it to 0. I now use the AC method. I get negative 25. So that means my middle values will be x squared plus 5x minus 5x minus 25, and that does equal 0. I finish factoring, and I get x minus 5, x plus 5. So that means my answer, x is going to equal positive and negative 5 for that problem. The last problem I want to do is this one. First thing I'm going to do is move the x squared over and the 10x over. And I get 2x squared plus x minus 3. Now it's all set to 0, so I'm going to move over here. 2x squared plus x minus 3 equals 0. Now I'm going to use the AC method, and I get negative 6. And I have to think what two numbers added together will give me a positive 1. Well, that is positive 3 and negative 2. So I get 2x squared minus 2x plus 3x minus 3 equals 0. And I end up getting 2x plus 3 times x minus 1 equals 0. Now this is real easy. X minus 1 equals 0. X equals 1. Now the other one's a little more tricky. 2x plus 3 equals 0. Subtract 3 to both sides. And I get 2x equals negative 3. Divide by 2. X equals negative 3 halves.